they started with some activities, including workshops that were held throughout the week this week, hence us having this meeting today. We have a program that is slightly packed, but we hope that you can stick around with us so that we can have this conversation together. We hope to be here for 4 hours. And on the program, we have the welcome remarks and agenda setting, which will be done by Professor Sala. You would know that Professor Sala is the CSO Forum Vice Chair. The chairperson, Ms. Amelia Fernanda, could not make it today. And then we'll have the Secretariat, ESRN, doing the objectives of the meeting. And then, of course, we'll have partners that will be speaking to us this morning. And we will then go on to appreciate what we have been doing as the forum. Thereafter, we'll get to also appreciate what has been done in the regions insofar as the charter is concerned. Later on, we hope to get in touch with information really and appreciation of findings from different studies and different strategies that are being developed. We'll have the committee speaking to us about the Agenda 2040, the 10 aspirations. We'll have the toolkit, the complaints toolkit by Gracia Michelle. But we'll also have the 2020 Child Wellbeing Report findings by ACPF. And we hope that by then we'll also engage in conversations around our own strategy in terms of our work going forward. Thereafter, we will then engage on issues around our statement as we engage with the committee next week. You would know that this meeting is coming today because tomorrow it's a milestone in the African context insofar as children's issues are concerned. The charter will be officially 30 years tomorrow on the 29th, and the theme for this 17th CSO Forum is the Charter at 30 commemoration. And we are looking at successes of the charter as well as opportunities that are in existence insofar as civil society taking advantage of that. So you are welcome once again, but I'm not the one doing welcome remarks. I'll be leading the proceedings of the meeting. So thank you so much. At this point, at this point, please allow me to call upon Professor Sala to give us the welcome remarks and generally to set the scene for the discussions that will be taking place today. Professor Sala, it's your time. Thank you. Okay, I understand that Prof hasn't joined yet, so we will skip that part. But I hope that you feel welcome and that you feel free to engage in the discussions, and that we will also get to learn a lot from your being here. Thank you so much. I will move on to ESRN to give us the objectives of the meeting. ESRN.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure whether it's good afternoon anywhere in the African continent, but this is Frecia from the East African Child Rights Network. Jennifer, I shared the presentation. Maybe you can share your screen. But as she does that, thank you, Felicitas, and thank you, colleagues. And as Felicitas said, welcome to the 17th CSO Forum. Thank you for joining us despite it being a weekend. Okay. Okay, Jennifer, maybe could you enlarge the screen? It is so tiny. Very, very tiny, barely able to read it. But as we wait for Jennifer or for her to be able to share that screen, the presentation or what is actually within the presentation that Jennifer is sharing, it's simply derived from the concept note that was shared as part of the link or the registration links or the documents attached to the link for the forum. As colleagues, as you know, and also as Felicitas has noted, the charter turns 30 this year, having come to force in 1999. And it was actually adopted in 1990, but didn't come to force in 1999. And then when we look at it as the CSO Forum, our mandate, or we gather around the charter for us to really discuss around the rights of the child and its implementation, look at the charter's implementation within the African Charter. And we meet twice a year, mostly every time before the committee meets, which is usually in March or April sometimes, and November. And as the CSO Forum, we give the committee a chance to present during our forum. And I think they have a session today around 12 o'clock. And they also, during the opening statement of the committee, we also participate and we also give an outcome statement coming from this forum. But there are other many ways in which the forum participates in the committee sessions. But I think for now, or for purposes of this, the CSO Forum actually precedes every time before the committee meets, the CSO Forum precedes it. Maybe, Jennifer, we can go to the next slide. As colleagues, our vision and mission, our vision is really the full realization by state parties of the enjoyment by children in Africa of the rights and welfare provided in the Charter, in the African Charter. And our mission is really to contribute to the effective implementation and proper monitoring of the African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child. We can go on to the next slide. So we have objectives as the Civil Society Forum, and we have, I think there are 5. Our objective is really to promote partnership and network building. I know we have done a lot, and I think even this forum in itself is a way of networking and a way of building partnerships. We do this with both civil societies, the Committee of Experts itself, the African Committee, the African Union Commission and its structures, and other stakeholders or partners in promoting and protecting the rights and welfare of the children in Africa. Our other goal or objective is really to contribute to the process of information sharing, best practices that we learn along the way, the research that we develop or we have done in the continent, that is between ourselves, the African Committee of Experts, state parties, and as civil societies who are implementing child rights within the continent. We are also seek to build capacity of civil society organizations on the Charter itself and its mechanisms. And also we seek to lobby states to respect and implement the provisions of the Charter. A lot of this, we have lobbied for states to either write reports, to participate in the sessions, and even the last 1 week we have had the regional or states giving the regional updates to the committee. And I think as civil societies, we mobilized a lot of our civil societies to also participate in that process. And also we have the objective to contribute to the development of policies, strategies that carry out actions for implementations and supervisions of the Charter. As you know, the Charter in itself is a regional instrument, and for a lot of states, they have to actually domesticate this at the national level. For some, it is automatic. For others, they actually have to have, it's a process for them to actually domesticate it. For others, like Kenya, I think our Child Rights Act is almost more or less copyright of what is within the Charter. We have really derived a lot of it from the Charter. So there's a lot of ways within, and our national laws borrow heavily from the guidelines or use the Charter as a guide. So Jennifer, you can go on to the next slide. So now for the 17th Civil Society Forum, as Felicitas has noted, since inception, this is the 17th time we are meeting, and it is the second time we are meeting virtually after the June session where we met for the first time as a part of our adaptation to the COVID scenario. We adopted the online methodology of meeting or virtual system. And I think since then, we've done a great job of holding, whether it is side events alongside the Civil Society Forum, whether it is during the celebration of the dark session, and even in the last sessions, we've had several or quite a few side events during the last week. So there's a lot of, as part of the civil society adoption or a methodology of adoption to really the COVID system. We have come together as the Secretariat to try and make sure that the sessions always continue. And this is why the 17th Civil Society Forum is happening virtually. So the forum is always guided, one, by previous sessions. We take the guidelines of what has happened in the previous forums, and they become a guideline or adoptions, or what is adopted in those other forums become a guide for the next forum. But also this year, as Felicitas has noted, the Charter turns 30 tomorrow. So we are guided by that Charter. We are reflecting on, since its adoption, and this is our Charter as the African region, being the only continent with a child rights specific Charter. I mean, what has it meant for us? Has it been of any gain? How well are we utilizing it? Do we even know it? Do we even understand it? What is our commitment to this, both as civil societies? What is the on how well are we engaging children? How well do our states also engage with the committee or with the Charter itself? So looking at the Charter this year as it stands 30, and for this specific forum, we are also looking at how the Charter has really enabled African states to provide frameworks for child protection and their well-being. And we've also looked at it has been able to provide for areas around education, nutrition, and broad health initiatives. It has given protective measures for children, and this is through the enactment of laws, establishment of structures to address child protection issues, and removing children from unsafe environments. I think listening to the last week's presentations, one of I think something that was almost every state kept adopting or kept saying they have adopted is a system of children's parliament. I don't know how well they function in different states, but this has been was one of the methodologies that was highly reported as a method of child participation in almost every country across the continent, but it also provides for children's psychosocial support. We can go on to the next slide, Jennifer. So as we're looking at this, all these gains that have been made by the Charter or provisions of the Charter, we still also realize that there are gaps and there are challenges within the effective realization of child rights within the continent. A lot of our countries have a lot of policies, a lot of very beautiful laws, but we have not yet fully moved to the implementation aspect of it. We have, yes, enacted the laws, but we have not fully implemented them. That means there is a gap in terms of the realization of child rights in the continent. And this can also be evidenced by the inadequate capacities of various levels of government in fulfilling child rights. There is also weak monitoring structures and tools. To date, there are still countries that haven't adopted the Charter. Others, despite adopting the Charter, have never really actually reported to the committee, and others who are up to date, we realize that we don't systematically follow the guidelines or the timelines as set out within the charter. We mostly combine 3 or 4 reports at the same time. So I think there's a lot in terms of our monitoring and our ability to report, that itself remains a gap. Even last year, as we talked about the judicial system, as we were looking at children in the judicial system, there's a lot that came up in terms of the gaps for children, or the gaps for child protection in the juvenile justice system, whether it is provision of the litigation or advocates to represent them, or whether it is the psychosocial support, whether it is the referral mechanisms. There's a lot that came about in terms of the review from last year's theme for DAC, as you remember. There's also a functional relationship between government and non-state actors, and also civil societies. I mean, the shrinking civil society space has been a point of discussion within almost every civil society forum. Sometimes it takes other civil societies outside of certain regions to actually highlight. This year, there have been so many. Issues or highlights of either violence against children, gender-based violence on the rise in different countries, or it's almost been, or even it was one of the recommendations of children, or one of the trends that they noticed as a worrying trend. Even the increased use of media and technology brought with it an aspect of GBV and trafficking online, or online child sexual exploitation. But also that is part of the limited and unmonitored use of technology within many countries. It has been automatically, or many countries have been forced, or whether it is government, civil societies, as part of our adaptation to COVID, all of us have adopted an online method of working. And this in itself has brought child rights violations. But on the upside, it has also increased, I think, our access to technology, but it also highlighted the different gaps, with children who are in the cities able to access things like education and other as using technology, but those in the rural areas were actually or unable to, because they really don't have access to some of this technology. So it brought about and highlighted the gaps and the disparity between the various categories of children. And so we can move on to the next slide. So as we are looking at what it is that we are discussing during this forum, we are focusing, as we said, yes, we are focusing on the Charter at 30, but more specifically, this forum will be discussing the achievements, and the opportunities for civil societies to catalyze the realization of child rights. This was discussed or highlighted by Felicitas in her opening remarks. And the forum is also, we are also using it as a platform. As we said, we use it to learn. And I think this was one of the adoptions, or one of the guidelines that was adopted, that in the second session of the Civil Society Forum, or the November one, we will always be using it to look internally at the forum itself. It's more of a capacity building aspect, the growth of the forum itself. And today we are also now looking at the general comment that was adopted by the committee in its last sitting, and what this really means for us as civil societies and for children, and how we are able to use this as a resource, both for us in our advocacy. We can go on, Jennifer. Yes, and as you know, for those of you, as one of the side events, or one of the first side events we had this year, was the ACPF report on the child wellbeing report. And I think that session, for those who are able to attend, you really gained a lot from it. For those who are not, I know the recordings were shared in the CSO Secretariat page, but I think this is also one of the studies that we can distribute as part of the materials that arise out of this forum. But also we are looking at Agenda 2040, this being the blueprint for us as people in the children's sector, and because it actually focuses on children and what it is we intend to achieve by 2040s. And so this research and advocacy, these two documents are also part of the research and advocacy, and it's something we can look at as we reflect on the 30 years of the charter. I think I also know there's been an ongoing ESIC competition, and I think maybe Jennifer or Felicitas will be able to elaborate on this, and where children were supposed to give, even specifically young women, write essays which are supposed to be discussed during today's forum. As we continue, Jennifer, the next slide. So yes, as we said, the second being the November session, we are really trying to focus internally on on the forum itself to try and grow the CSO Forum. And one of the things we are trying to look at today, or we are going to look at, or we've been working on as a forum, one is a strategic plan, or how to adopt a strategic plan for the civil society. And also, we've been working on the website for the forum, so that a lot of this, I know a lot of the communication comes from the CSO Forum, the email address, but for a lot of you, there's so much resource and so many materials, but we had a website, then it expired, but now we are upgrading it, and we'll be able to really like to hear your opinions on this, and even as we look at our strategic plan and the way forward for how as civil societies you can actually input into the process, and also how to also be part of the process throughout, and also how you can actually interact with our website, and also give us your views on how it looks, what you think lacking, or how you think we can better improve that. So we will also be giving feedback. As I told you, we had 5 sub-regional meetings which were guided by the committee, but as civil society forum, we always assist the committee in terms of mobilization, and also linking the different members or civil society members within the different areas of the continent. So those meetings took place, and I know they were quite interactive. We got to hear from the different countries. So for us, I think we will get to hear from this, but we also had a lot of side events during this forum on various thematic issues. So we will be able to hear from the civil society forum more of a nutshell or a consolidation of what these side events and what they were looking at, the successes and the way forward. We can go, Jennifer, next slide. So, colleagues, this is our agenda for today. And this is at the end, or by the end of today, we should be able to have appreciated the achievements of the charter. I mean, the successes, the opportunities, our ability and our ability now to utilize the information that is derived from this charter 30 years onward. Also, we are able to understand and appreciate the meaningful engagement with children on the provisions of the charter and the lived experiences. As noted, we had, that is last week, Saturday, that is 1 week ago exactly, we had a session with children, and they were able to give us from their perspective. They were able to meet both virtually, some were able to congregate at hotels, but we had over 100 children from the African continent, drawn from all the regions of the African continent, giving their inputs, giving their ideas and what it is they feel about the charter at 30 and what it has meant for them and what they feel is the best way forward. So we were able to consolidate that into a report and also a video from the same event, and we'll be able to look at that today. But also, as part of the civil society forum, we always did or write an outcome statements coming from this forum. So we should be able to have one, we should be able to learn from each other, and we should also be able to hold each other accountable in a sense, based on what we are learning today, based even on the strategic plan, the website. These are all tools and methodologies to sort of give us a roadmap or to give us a strategic direction from which to follow. So as we end today, we should be able to also have an outcome statement which will be used which will be a summary of what happened today and also used in the African Committee session, which starts on Monday. So in a nutshell, I think, colleagues, that is what we are looking at today. And that is the summary of what the forum is, where we are at, and where we are looking to go, and what our discussions will be focusing on today. So I think I take it back to Felicitas. In case there are any questions, I'm available.
Thank you so much. After that elaborative and comprehensive objectives of why we are here, I couldn't have put it any better. So thank you so much, Freshia. We are going to move right along with the program, but the idea is, as we are listening in, as we are engaging, let's, at the back of our minds, remember the objectives or why we are here, and whether or not the discussions we are having are actually taking us there in terms of what we want to leave this meeting having achieved. So that's the reason why we take this session for the objectives very, very seriously. But before I move on to the next item, thank you so much once again, Precious. Before I move on to the next item on the agenda, perhaps, Jennifer, are there any other housekeeping issues that we need to be on the lookout for, particularly on the use of technology, so that you can just run us through those before we proceed?
Thank you, Felicitas, for that. So quick ones is, so majority of us don't have access to video and audio. So you're wondering why you can't see your video. You are wondering why you can't see your audio. We've done that on purpose, and this is to ensure that we are able to be organized. But if you want to talk and you want to chat, there's a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen that can help you to ask any question or to communicate to us. So this session has interpretation in the 3 languages: Arabic, French, and Portuguese. They are on right now. So if you are able, please, if you're able, if you have any challenges with the languages, do let me know. You can send me a WhatsApp or a message. So I'm going to project the French, the Arabic functions as we go on. So if you have any questions, if you have any, please put them on the chat. So please, if you want to lift up during the discussion, if you want to talk, lift up your hand and we are going to allow you to talk. So you're not like being dumped all of us, you can be able to talk. So for now, I think that's all. But if you have any difficulties, do reach out to me on chat or on WhatsApp and I can help you. Thank you so much, Felicitas.
Thank you. And already, Jenny, there are hands. I don't know if it's hands that...
That's an interpreter. I want to
okay. Wilson, you're confusing me. I thought you wanted to say something. All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, and please remember that we are also on Twitter. We are live on Facebook, the CSO Forum page, the ESRN page, the CRINSA page, and that we are also tweeting on the CSO Forum Twitter handle. But we also do have partners like Pan Africa also doing that. Please go ahead and retweet as well. Hashtag 17th CSO Forum. Hashtag Charter at 30. So let's flood the social media with the engagement for this morning. Now, moving along with the program, I am going to go straight into the solidarity messages, and those messages as well are speaking to the charter and perhaps speaking to us as civil society organizations. And I'm going to start off with the messages with Save the Children International, and invite Kennedy Kimani to take the floor. Kennedy?
Thank you, Felicitas. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kennedy Kimani, as Felicitas has mentioned. I work at Save the Children International as the Regional Program Manager for Child Rights Governance and Child Poverty in our regional programming unit for East and Southern Africa. And I am very grateful this morning for this opportunity to give solidarity remarks on behalf of Save the Children International. First of all, I would like to thank and congratulate the CSO Forum Secretariat for convening the 17th CSO Forum to the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The CSO Forum remains the premier platform that brings us together and brings regional child rights networks and civil society organizations across the continent to advocate on behalf of children and also with children on various pressing issues that affect children. And this is in a bid to ensure that their rights are respected and they are protected, and also that their rights are fulfilled in the different countries and the regions of this continent. This year, 2020, is therefore a very important year for not only for the CSO Forum, but also for all the stakeholders in the child rights sector, as well as children themselves. This year, as Frecia has mentioned, and Felicitas, marks the 30th anniversary of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And thus, this is an opportune moment for us to celebrate the gains that we have made so far, and also to reflect on the achievements and the impact of the Charter on the lived realities of children in Africa. To date, ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, 49 countries have ratified the Africa Children's Charter. This ratification demonstrates their commitment to respect, promote, and protect the rights of children. The Charter has, in an incredible way, changed the way Africa and the world see children. They are seen as rights holders. Through the Charter, we have achieved considerable progress with gains in education, health, and living standards. The mortality rates for children also under 5 have reduced by over 50%, and huge strides have also been made in universal primary education. The Charter's definition of a child as any person below 18 years has brought a lot of added value in the lives of children by curtailing practices that expose children to abuse and exploitation, such as child marriage and harmful child labor. The Charter has also prohibited the recruitment and involvement of children into hostilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the gains are too many to share, and I think we would need very many days to share and discuss them. So these gains make today a very special day, and that is why we are congregating here to be able to celebrate. As I finalized, when we celebrate, we should not forget the journey that is ahead of us. We need to reflect on the challenges that remains ahead. We are yet to achieve universal ratification of the Charter. We should not rest until the remaining 6 countries ratify the Africa Children's Charter. Beyond ratification, states need to enhance the implementation of their obligations under the Charter. They also need to religiously report to the Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, as this is one of the key ways to hold them accountable on their commitment to children's rights. We have recurrent and emerging threats, including child marriage, FGM, discrimination against girls and children with disabilities, situations of internally displaced and migrant children, children affected by armed conflict and climatic disasters, children being victims of radicalization and violent extremism, COVID-19, among many others. It is with all this in mind, colleagues, that Save the Children reaffirms its strong commitment and support to the CSO Forum as it endeavors to achieve its vision towards full realization by state parties and enjoyment by children in Africa of the rights and welfare provided under the Charter. Happy birthday, Jennifer, and happy birthday to the Africa Children's Charter. I wish you all fruitful deliberations.
Thank you so much, Kimani. Indeed, we would need more days to really talk about the charter and what it means, and how best we can utilize its provisions going forward. So we join you into the happy birthday song for the charter, as well as the happy birthday to our able CSO Forum communication lead, Jennifer. Thank you so much for that. We move on, colleagues, with the different partners, and I'm going to be inviting Sam from Plan International, the director for Plan International, the Pan-African Liaison Office, to also talk to us about Plan International and the charter and civil society organizations and children, the girl child. It's your time, Sam.
Thank you very much, Felicitas. Thank you to everybody who have made this possible. I mean, I think it's one of the days that we can't celebrate enough of. And so I'd want to continue from where Kennedy ended, and just to say that happy birthday to Jennifer. I mean, we definitely really appreciate your contribution to this forum, and happy birthday to the charter, which will be 30 years next tomorrow. And I guess one of the things that I was reflecting on is how old were many of us when the charter was ratified, and how much have we achieved. And I think Kennedy mentioned quite a number of them. I think looking forward to the next 30 years, we'll probably also have opportunities to question ourselves to what extent we are going to move the mantle forward as we celebrate children in the continent. But I'd want to begin by congratulating the CSO Forum. I think it's amazing reflecting back and looking at the fact that this is our 17th session, and particularly the fact that you've been able to successfully manage and organize 2 virtual meetings. And I think it's amazing the way you've done it, and so congratulations to you. But also I think what is striking is how we've been able to institutionalize Children Forum within the CSO Forum itself. And Plan is happy to see that this is being institutionalized, where children are brought in to be able to discuss their own issues, but also be able to reflect on what they think as children we need to be working on. So that for me is also very profound. And Plan is happy that we have children engage in the conversation around the charter, which is supposed to be their own charter. I would also want to say that I'm happy, particularly to see that this session is focused on reflecting on the charter at 30. I think there's so much that we can celebrate, and so let's make time to celebrate those achievements. But there are also gaps that we need to look at and we need to reflect on, and to see how we as civil society organizations will be able to move this forward and also be part of the solution. I believe that we have what it takes as civil society, and especially this forum, to be able to engage in conversations and discourses that would ensure that we are living the charter, and the charter is doing what it's supposed to do, basically improving the condition of children on the continent. But I think it also provides us with an opportunity as civil society to take a deep dive into our own capacities, to see what we need to be able to do to drive the agenda forward. I think we have what it takes, but then what we need to ask ourselves is whether we are always applying ourselves to be able to move the charter forward, whether we are doing what we need to do, and whether we are applying our passion and our skills and our experiences to move the charter forward. We can't celebrate without also having a reflection on where we are, especially as a continent, and the impact of COVID on children and on our societies. When we met the last time in the virtual meeting, one of the things that came up very clearly, and that was at the early stages of COVID, was the impact of COVID on children. I think for Plan, we had been looking at the impact of COVID, especially on girls. And in the report that we did with ACPF on the impact of girls, recorded under siege impact of COVID on African girls, a couple of things came up, and which are so very concerning. One of them is the impact of COVID in exacerbating the issues of gender-based violence, which girls themselves have been complaining about. We are also concerned about the issue of hunger and deprivation among girls and children in general, but also the issue of harassment of girls, especially online, and particularly the fact that we have about 120 million girls who are currently staying home because of lockdown. And our estimate is if schools reopen, I mean, how many of these girls will be left behind? How many of them would have dropped out? Now, remember, education is time-bound and it's age-bound. And so the more schools are closed, I mean, anybody who is close to 17 years is probably going to go into 18 years. They are no longer going to be children. And so the impact of them and to what extent we can support them is also going to diminish. And that, for us, is a great concern. Now, having said that, we are also confident in responses that member states have put in place and plan the support in member states to be able to respond to the lived realities of girls. Now, there are a few areas I would want to bring to the attention of the forum as we all deliberate on the Charter at 30. One of them, I think I was mentioned earlier on, is that we need to continue to explore ways of expanding the effectiveness of regional CSO networks, and especially for networks in the North, in West Africa, and also Central Africa. I know we have been doing our best, but I guess as we move into the next phase of the forum, we have to start thinking about how to expand our effectiveness in those regions. I think it's also time to explore ways of encouraging member states to improve on their reporting to the committee. I know countries have been improving upon that, but then again, it was very clear during the introduction when we had that session that we have reports that have been lumped together, and we have countries who have not reported since they ratified the Charter, and we even have countries who have not ratified the Charter at all. I think Kennedy mentioned this, so it will be important for us as a forum to see how we can support the implementation, but also reporting and the ratification of the Charter. The other thing is that we also need to expand, and I'm happy to hear that the forum is working on the website. I think currently the mode of engagement is mostly through WhatsApp. And so that also excludes a number of people who are not on the platform, but also people who would want to see where we put all our lessons. And so Plan will be happy to support the forum as you work on developing your website and other means of engagement to make sure that we have a lot more people coming on board the CSO Forum. Now, we are happy to be associated as an organization. We really do share in the objective and also the aspiration of the CSO Forum. We believe that what we have on the continent to be able to push member states and also to push accountability within the continent is through a CSO Forum. And so Plan would endeavor to support the forum in whichever way we can to be able to challenge structures and norms that create barriers for girls' development. Now, finally, I would want to wish everybody well. I mean, we are happy to all contribute, and we wish this forum not just the conversation, but also how to, one, share the outcomes, but secondly, how to support the implementation of the outcomes that will come out of this session. So thank you very much for inviting Plan to be part of this session. And like I said, we would always be happy to support this forum and be part of the development of the forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And indeed, Plan International has been one of our backbones in terms of facilitating for the CSO Forum to stage these sittings. Plan International, together with Save the Children and other partners who have come on board recently. We note the issue of how best do we as civil society organizations, given our comparative advantage of being watchdogs, monitoring the implementation of the Charter, but as well as supporting the committee and complementing government. We have so much that we can do to push the different member states to report on the Charter, but also those that are still having reservations and haven't ratified that we can still influence how that is actually done. Thank you so much, Sam. Please allow me to move on to the third partner to speak to us this morning, and I'm going to ask Dr. Eddie Adai from Unicef to take the floor. Eddie?
Thank you very much, Felicitas, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Let me start by congratulating you, Felicitas, and the entire CSO Forum for an excellent process leading to this meeting, and for the work that you continue to do, your flexibility, your adaptability, and the difference you continue to make on this continent. Thank you very much, CSO Forum. But more importantly, let me raise the issue that the more you do, the more people want to add to it. And I want to join Plan in saying that we have to put all our efforts and all our eggs together to help you continue to make progress in the area that you have continuously made progress in. Thank you very much, CSO Forum, and thank you, Felicitas. Let me also say a happy birthday to Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. You continue to do good work. You continue to enable. You continue to bring us together. And definitely, your work is really appreciated on the continent. Thank you, Jennifer, for being a good advocate for children. To build on the remarks that have come before me, I'd like to structure mine in using what I call the 7 C's. So allow me, Felicitas, to go quickly through some of the 7 C's, and through the 7 C's raise a number of issues that I hope the CSO Forum can incorporate in their work and can form a basis for all the work that we do on the continent, both advocacy and programmatically. The first is the Charter. I think there's a lot to celebrate amongst all of us on the Charter. Fewer children are dying, and you've heard some of the statistics. More children are in school, and we can all celebrate that. But there's a lot that we can also bow our heads around, unfortunately, particularly the needs of most marginalized children and young people, including girls on our continent. I think we need to do more around those facing poverty, exclusion, and violence, children with disability, children affected or displaced by humanitarian crisis, and children without parental care. And in my view, we need to really, really push the frontiers on the care agenda in spite of context. So there's a lot for us to celebrate, but there's a huge unfinished business. There's also the unfinished business around the ratification, and you heard the data earlier on, and you yourselves are very much aware of. And I'm hoping that the CSOs in the countries that have not yet ratified would really, really invest time in working with us to mobilize and advocate for ratification in those countries. But more important, to share with us the bottlenecks to ratification and to see how we can collectively work together to address them. But beyond ratification, I think the continent needs to bow down its head in shame on the reporting. Reporting is very, very low on our continent. And most of us have compared reporting to CRC to reporting to the committee, and definitely the gap in the reporting remains one that we need to understand, and we need to try to bridge. Why is it that a lot of African countries are reporting to the CRC, which is good and needs to be sustained, and yet are not reporting to the committee? We need to bridge that gap, and my team is available to work with you to explore the rationale for what we are seeing in terms of reporting. So the reporting and ratification agenda remains incomplete, in addition to the huge unfinished agenda underpinned by a changing context, which takes me on to my second C. My second C is about childhood. In Africa today, childhood is changing. but child rights are not changing. I mean, the way we were brought up as children is very different from the way we are bringing out our children. And we need to keep this in mind, which makes the charter as relevant today as it was 30 years ago. But it also means that we need agility, and I really appreciate the CSO Forum for the agility they are providing, for the innovative ways they are doing their business in spite of COVID. And I said it at the last meeting. We need agility. We need to recognize that childhood is really changing, and we need to approach things differently. There's a lot of children today are on the internet, and we haven't made enough progress around dealing with online sexual exploitation, abuse, etc. A lot of children have their parents; they no longer have their grandparents available to bring them up. I was brought up essentially by my grandparents. My parents were working. Grandparents are no longer available to do that. And people are being brought up by house helps without supervision. The care agenda is really the foundation of our of child rights, and unfortunately that is problematic. And more recently, we've had experience with COVID. So it calls for us to continue to reinforce the importance of the charter, but more importantly, it means that we have to be flexible. We have to be adaptable. We have to be contextually relevant as we look at the way we do child rights. And through you, I'd like to thank the committee for its general comments that help us deal with the contextual issues, the marginal issues, the changing issues in relation to the child rights. I think under your leadership, Felicitas and team, we need to work with the committee to evolve an agenda of general comments that will make the charter very relevant, understanding that childhood is changing, but the child rights are not changing. It's through the general comments that we can continue to improve the relevance of the charter in terms of the way we deliver on the commitments in the charter. But that takes me on to the third point, which is the issue of complexity. Bringing up a child is a very complex endeavor, involves many interacting elements and many interacting actors. Linked to the previous statement in the past, we said bringing up a child is the responsibility of a community. I remember our neighbors when I was a kid could just hit me and try and correct me. Today, that would be violence, and we have to be aware of that. But it also means that we need to work in our world, acknowledging the dimension of complexity, and that requires that we work at multiple places, we take multiple actions, we are flexible, we are adaptable in the way we do. It requires that we improve of our knowledge. And it requires that things that can be amplified, we identify them and really try and amplify them across the continent. It's with this in mind that I want to congratulate Felicitas and team and the entire CSO Forum for investing in building a knowledge management platform. That's where to go. And definitely linking the knowledge platform to the excellent work that you are doing. And there's a lot of work on the normative space, and that's important, but the difference comes from the action you take on the ground. So your investment in a knowledge platform is the way to go, and your investment in bringing us together to discuss the findings and the things that we are learning, but more importantly, putting in place an amplification strategy for the good practices is indeed where to go. So that takes me on to the fourth C, which is contextualization. I think that necessarily we have to act at the global level or at the continental level on the charter, but the reality is that action takes place on the ground, and you are on the ground. You have access to communities, to real people, and we hope that you can draw on that comparative advantage to really take forward that issue of contextualizing the charter to countries and bringing and to communities and bringing local level evidence to the work that we do, lessons, what is happening on the ground. How are people dealing with the realities of some of the things that we aspire at the continental level? No organization is positioned to do that better than you. So let me encourage the CSO Forum on its work in helping us contextualize the work. And I hope this will be a core element of your strategic plan. Which takes me on to the 5th C, which is courage to act. Unfortunately, a lot of us look at constraints, and that's another C. But I'd like to challenge us that really the courage to act is really our way of dealing with constraints. We must act. We must act. Since my professional career started over 30 years ago, one of the things I've heard at a lot of meetings is the policy implementation gap, legislation implementation gap. Can we set ourselves the simple task of saying we will let this thing go away? And for me, the only way to do so is to act, recognizing constraints, but acting within the constraints. It's through that we are able to mobilize resources, through that if you allow me to use this word, we are able to dissolve the existing constraints that prevent us from acting. So the cardinal sin of not acting is something that we should take away from the way that we work and the way that we do things. The 6th C that I want to share with us is our comparative advantage. We need to recognize the comparative advantage of all of us, because each of us, no single institution has the capability to deliver on the mandate that we have. We said it's complex. Child rights is complex. Some people even say it's a wicked problem. We need to act on the basis of our comparative advantage. We need to create a platform, and you have an excellent platform, an open platform that brings people in. For us to build this continent and to achieve children's rights on the basis of our comparative advantage, we should celebrate our differences, but we should work together to ensure coherence in our actions. That's what it means to act on the basis of our comparative advantage. The 7th is collective impact, building on comparative advantage. And there's an African proverb that says a single broom cannot make a difference, it's the whole broom. And unfortunately, when I talk about broom, the younger persons will not know what I'm talking about. So my mental image is one of a broom with so many broomsticks tied at the top end with a string. One of the effective tools for sweeping and for cleaning our dirt. It's about collective impact. And I want to really thank the CSO Forum for really being creating that platform and having an open space where all of us can come together to talk, to discuss, and then to act. So those were my 7 C's that I wanted to share with you. And to really, really appreciate the CSO Forum for the work you are doing, but to also say that because you are doing such good work, the pressure on you to do more would increase, and you can count on us to really, really, really try and bridge the gap between the pressure and the work you're already doing. Let me try and wrap up with a 6-point agenda, and I'll just list them in the interest of time, that I think are going to be critical for our continent as we begin to create a new future. 30 years from now, if we are alive, that's the future that we have to create. But the decisions around this 6-point agenda must start now. The first agenda is learning. We need to ensure that all children, especially girls, learn. They stay in school and they learn, including closing the digital gap and the electricity divide that we're experiencing on the continent. The second is primary health care. We need to guarantee access to primary health care and make vaccines affordable and available to every child. The third is mental health. We need to support and protect the mental health of children and young people and bring an end to abuse, violence, exploitation, and neglect of children. We need to work on this. But we approach violence, abuse, and exploitation as if they are entities in itself. But the mental health consequences really are overwhelming, and they are intergenerational, and they stick with us all out. The fourth is water, sanitation, and hygiene. It's a fundamental thing. All of us need it. I call on the CSO Forum to lead the charge in making sure that this is accessible to all families. In the 21st century, we still don't have water sanitation available in homes. And to address the environmental degradation and climate change that we are beginning to experience on our continent. The fifth is child poverty. There's a reversal in child poverty, particularly in this COVID era. We are beginning to see a child rights crisis from what started as a health crisis. We have to ensure that we create a new recovery. We really deal with child poverty. And lastly, we have to redouble our efforts to protect and support children and their families living in conflict, natural disasters, and also displaced. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to work together to reimagine an Africa that is fit for children. And for me, that Africa that's fit for children is an Africa that deals at least with these 6 things concurrently. Lastly, and in conclusion, I want to thank you so much for your Children's Forum. Listening to children and young people and including them in decision-making is what we have to be doing. I think we can. Under their leadership, we can, and I think we should. I thank you very much for your attention, and over to you, Felicitas.
Wow, Dr. Adai, I think my team and I are really challenged. The 6 C's. Because as you rightfully pointed out, the more you do better, the more the expectations become, because you always have to endeavor to do more than what you did last time. But we are comforted by the fact that we do have partners such as Unicef, also holding our hand, supporting us, and providing the necessary technical expertise that we need in order for us to forge ahead. So thank you so much for recommitting the organization to support the CSO Forum, but over and above that, to really be an organization that can also contribute to the engagement going forward insofar as facilitating for the platform and the advantage that the CSO Forum has really for us to optimally utilize it to make the necessary changes both at policy but also at practice level. So thank you so much for that. We move on, colleagues, because we are also recognizing that it's a Saturday and we need to stick to the program and hopefully let you go while there's still time. Allow me at this point to invite Africa Early Childhood Network. I'm not so sure if it's going to be Stella or Alicia that is speaking, but please take the floor.
Thank you, Felicitas, and everyone for this opportunity to share our solidarity report and statement. My presentation today is twin. My colleague Alicia will speak a bit about specific articles that we want to speak into, and we will conclude. We will try to be as short as possible. So everyone, my name is Stella Mbugwa. Program Manager for Improved Practice at the African Early Childhood Network. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Thank you so much, CSO Forum and CRINZA, specifically Felistas Motimedi, for the opportunity to share our solidarity with child rights actors. On behalf of our board and management, represented by Dr. Lynette Okengo, who is our executive director, we appreciate the opportunity for participating in this session. Our solidarity to what you're doing, your work, your vision is unwavering. Asante sana, shukran, mercy, obrigado. Thank you all for your commitment to and the vision for Africa's children. AFCAN is a member of the CSO Forum, and we appreciate all the efforts by partners represented here as we commemorate the Charter at 30 from tomorrow. AFCAN's journey to solidify collaborations with the CSO Forum began in 2018, and we have had about 4 opportunities to engage with the CSO Forum. AFCAN, like all child rights actors, envisions to ensure that all children are learning, they are safe, they are healthy, happy, and achieving their full potential. And how do we do this? ECD, or the WHO 2018 Nurturing Care Framework, reflects the pillars of health, nutrition, opportunities for early learning, social protection, and responsive caregiving for all children under the age of 8. And protecting these children speaks to nurturing care. Just like the African Charter supports rights accruing to children and offering opportunities for collaboration, AFCAN, the African Early Childhood Network, serves as a platform to champion excellence, collaboration in protecting children's rights, influencing policy and practice, strengthening partnership, sharing experiences and knowledge in ECD, which is early childhood development in the African continent. Before I conclude our remarks today, I welcome my learned friend, lawyer, and colleague Alicia to speak into specific charters that respond to early childhood development, or ECD. Over to you, Alicia.
Thank you very much, Stella. Thank you, Felistas. Thank you, CSO Forum. My name is Alicia Lutomia, and I will be highlighting on why ECD is critical and how ECD is reflected in the charter as well. So why
Good
ECD?
Morning. No break, it's finished.
Informed by the latest neuroscience research, the basic architecture of the brain
That was
is
a late
constructed
comment.
on ongoing process. Excuse me?
Go on,
Yes,
Alicia.
Go ahead, Alicia.
All right. Okay. So like I said, I'll be talking about why ECD is critical and how ECD is reflected in the charter. So why ECD? Why ECD? Informed by the latest neuroscience research, the basic architecture of the brain is constructed through an ongoing process that begins before birth and continues into adulthood. Early experiences affect the quality of that architecture by establishing either a steady or a fragile foundation for all of the learning, health, and behavior that follows after. So investments, therefore, need to be placed early and continuously. Early preventive interventions have also been found to be more efficient and produce more favorable outcomes than remediation later in life. So this is why ECD is critical. And so now how is ECD reflected in the Charter? The following articles of the African Charter respond to ECD and nurturing care. We have Article 6, which speaks on the child's right to an identity through naming and birthing registration. And we have seen that actually Dr. Adai mentioned something about the general comments and working on the general comments or leveraging on the general comments. And here, as regards to Article 6 and the child's right to an identity through naming and birthing and birth registration, basically, we see that there was a general comment that was issued by the expert committee to comment on the issue of name and nationality, observing that that national laws often do not contain the rights explicitly provided in the Charter. And on the basis of this provision, the committee stressed the nature of state obligations, emphasizing the need for the states to emphasizing the need that the states lacking civil registration laws to develop such laws, and where these laws exist, to ensure that they are well implemented. So where laws are also inadequate, the states were asked to revise them so that they can be in line to the comment. So we can see that there's actually been a lot of work going on regarding that. And we also have Article 14, which talks about the child's right to enjoy the best attainable state of physical, mental, and spiritual health. And Dr. Adai also mentioned something about about mental health, basically. And this responds to the pillars of ECD that Stella just mentioned earlier on. And it touches on nutrition for physical health as well as non-physical health, which is the mental, and we also have the spiritual well-being of the child. Because being continuously exposed to an environment of ridicule and threats and intimidation, discrimination or rejection, and other non-physical forms of hostility or hostile treatment results in what is called toxic stress. And toxic stress weakens the architecture of the developing brain of a child, which can lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, and physical and mental health. So this is actually very important. Then we have Article 16, which talks about protecting children from torture and inhumane, degrading treatment, especially physical or mental injury or abuse, neglect, maltreatment, including sexual abuse. This responds to the social protection pillar of ECD. And mainly, this is important because the early years, 0 to 8-year-olds, are very dependent on their families. And we also have infants and young children who suffer from such living conditions, making them be at risk of many forms of maltreatment, and mostly by primary caregivers and other family members. But this also occurs in other settings such as school and residential care. So I think Article 16 is actually very critical even to ECD. We also have Article 18 that talks about the family, emphasizing the fact that the family, being a natural unit and basics, is the basis of a society, therefore needing special protection. This responds to ECD as well, how family provides a natural nurturing environment for young children. And this provides opportunities for building resilience in them, especially in their very fragile years, in their infant years. We also have Article 20, which talks about parents and caregivers acting in the best interest of the child at all times. That one is a very general statement and obviously captures all the aspects of ECD. And we also have Article 30, which talks about the accountability of the state in protecting expectant mothers of infants and young children who are incarcerated for breaking the law. Here we are talking about pre- and postnatal care, which includes all the 5 components of nurturing care. We may not really have time to go through all the details, but this captures ECD, and all the articles that I have stated actually speak to ECD and the pillars of ECD, and these are incorporated in the Charter. We also have finally Article 11 that talks about the right to education. Education for a child to develop his or her personality, talents, and mental and physical abilities to their fullest potential. So my question here is, what is education? And I will give a lay definition according to the Oxford Dictionary. This is the most basic definition of what education is. It is the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. And I love the word especially at, because especially means that not only at school or university, but mostly at school or university. So here we see the early learning component coming in, the early learning component of ECD and of nurturing care coming in. And we know that education, which we have discussed, means receiving systematic instructions, does not start at school. It doesn't start at age 4 to 6 when a child enrolls in school. Learning starts in the womb, and parents need to read, to sing, and talk to their unborn child. This is the whole aspects of responsive caregiving that we will probably discuss in another forum. But generally, from that brief overview, we can see that ECD is well incorporated in the Charter, in the various articles that I've mentioned. And I think from this point, it will be important for us to be able to highlight and bring out the aspect of ECD that is already incorporated in the charter and work hand in hand together as partners to make sure that every child grows up in a safe, in a happy, and in a nourishing environment for the betterment of society and for the future of the African continent. So I will now hand over to my colleague Stella, who will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. In response to Article 12 on the right to play, AFCAN and CSO Forum partnered this past week on 25th November to launch the Playful Parenting webinar series, which was really exciting. And it responds to the need for the child to participate in cultural and artistic functions wherever they are. Please join us on 2nd, 9th, and 16th every Wednesday from 3 to 4:30 p.m. East African time for the series. And the webinars are trilingual in French, English, and Portuguese, interpretation and translation. As we face COVID-19, many families lack the capacity for nurturing as they should. And also families have had to restrain their children from play, which is sad. Capacity building and equipping the African family on the child's right to play is one of the joint responsibilities that we AFCAN and the CSO Forum has during this crisis and beyond. And why is this? The right to play is an example that offers therapeutic protection mechanisms for children, not only to process, but also to express their inmost thoughts and experiences of whether it is violence, abuse, and they do it through play so that their development is optimal. And if we capture this, we are able to support or arrest issues that they are going through. And healthy, responsive caregivers can provide this to ensure that children emerge healthy, whole, and resilient through and beyond adversity. In closing, our commitment to the CSO Forum, Felicitas and colleagues, is not short-term. It is long-term for ECD, and we will build the capacity of CSOs together to respond to ECD from a child rights lens. We are glad that the development of the strategic plan and the website is on course. We are very, very happy that these are part of today's agenda. So congratulations, Felicitas and team. Happy birthday, Jenny. Shukran, asante, merci, obrigado. Thank you. We wish everyone a fruitful session, and over to you, Felicitas. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Stella and Alicia. And we are learning. Most of us are parents, and this singing and reading, maybe a lot of us have not have an opportunity to practice it. So this is also a learning platform. So thank you so much for sharing. And indeed, civil society organizations will participate in the subsequent webinars that are going to take place so that we can ensure that we become conversant on these issues of ECD as well as learn through play. So thank you so much. I'm going to be switching gears and invite a rights holder. As you are aware that we do have our employers who are children, and we try as much as we possibly can really to ensure that as we do that at all times when we engage with children, that there are issues of child safeguard and child protection that we follow, that we take issues of consent seriously, but also that we ensure that as they participate, there is no victimization that takes place. So allow me at this point to invite to the floor Joshua, who is going to be speaking to us. Joshua is coming from the Eastern Africa region and coming from Uganda as the specific country. Joshua, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. A good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Moriah Joshua. I'm 15 years old in Senior 2, and I'm a child rights advocate and a writer for High Sound for Children and the Uganda Child Rights NGO Network in Uganda. Last Saturday, a meeting was held where children from different regions of Africa gathered to discuss about the children's rights and welfare on the Charter and and the challenges that these children are facing today with their rights. And this is what we adopted from that meeting. Over 100 children from all the 5 regions in Africa met on the 21st of November 2020 to reflect on the successes and opportunities of African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child and the milestones over the past 30 years. We wish to state as follows, and on it to deliberate on how COVID-19 children acknowledge the big steps that Africa has made in ensuring that we are protected. This has been development, enactment, and implementation of different laws and policies at national and regional level. We take this opportunity to celebrate the 30 years of the African Charter on the rights and welfare of children, and document that is special and made especially for us. We would want to make the Charter part of their laws. The existence of the Charter and the other laws on children has resulted to increased protection of children. More of us are able to go to school and achieve our goals. Our countries have worked to ensure all children get immunized and get health services from the government programs, and many governments have established platforms which give us an opportunity to speak. We, the children of Africa, are, however, concerned that despite the Charter being in place for over 30 years, many children across the continent remain vulnerable and placed and at risk. This is as a result of continued violations of their rights, and in particular, those children affected by armed conflict, harmful cultural practices, and emerging risks such as climate change, resulting to online abuse and corruption among our leaders. These challenges have increased more during the lockdown and other measures the government has taken stop the spread of COVID-19. Some of us don't have food as many parents have lost their jobs. There has been an increase in sexual abuse at home, and many of our girls have become pregnant or gotten married. We as the children in Africa believe we can work together. We therefore give the following recommendations. Our governments to develop and implement law policies on the protection and empowerment of children and ensure the participation, ensure implementation of national policies and legislation for children by allocating the necessary human, technical, and financial resources. Ensure the participation of children in decision-making processes on all matters affecting them. To create safe spaces for children to express their views on all matters related to their rights. Ensure that children have access to appropriate information through various means, including the internet, to enable them express their opinions, take part in decision-making processes, and access education and learning materials. To ensure free and quality education for children, including children's rights on the African Charter, on the ACRWC, and facilitate access to education for pregnant girls and young mothers. Collaborate with internet service providers to facilitate access to affordable internet connectivity for all children, to enable them to access information and online education while guaranteeing their safety online. Ensure that children have access to justice through child-friendly mechanisms at the national and international level, to enable them report and file complaints of violation of their rights. Take all appropriate measures including legal and policy actions to end all forms of harmful traditional and cultural practices against children, such as female genital mutilation and cutting, early child marriages, forced labor, harmful rights, among others. Ensure universal, free and quality education for all children, and to facilitate access to education for pregnant girls and young mothers. Make efforts to address, prevent and swiftly respond to cases of child abuse, exploitation, and all sexual exploitation and gender-based violence. Provide accessible, child-sensitive and safe counseling to support children affected by violence, abuse and harmful traditional practices. Ensure that humanitarian assistance is provided to children and their families affected by hunger, drought, conflict, violence, and insecurity. Provide affordable housing to families affected during the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially street children. Ensure that appropriate measures and safeguards are put in place to counter the spread of COVID-19, to protect children and their caregivers, and quality healthcare to those affected by COVID-19. To commit to achieving the outcomes of safe children across our region. We call upon the African Union Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of Children to increase awareness of the Charter to all children, to participate to the next Children Forum so that they can know what children want, due to the fact that they didn't participate in the previous one, to encourage countries such as Democratic Republic of Congo to ratify the Charter. We call upon the civil society organizations to enhance community awareness on rights of children, improve coordination with and among organizations working on the rights of children in Africa, continue to provide platforms for the meaningful participation of children, collaborate with all relevant stakeholders at national, regional, and international level to promote the rights of the child. We call upon the media to create content that is relevant for the empowerment of children, create platforms for children to contribute and co-create relevant content, provide coverage of the plight of children across the continent and at national level. That is what we adopted on the 21st of November 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And a call to member states and call to civil society organizations is a call that we are taking seriously, coming from yourself as a representative of all African children. So thank you so much for that. We will be using your statement to also now engage amongst ourselves, but over and above that, to really do engage with duty bearers insofar as pushing for the realization of your rights as children is concerned. Thank you so much, and thank you for having made time to address us this morning or this afternoon. We really do appreciate it. Colleagues, partners, please allow me to take the last speaker on this session, who is going to be coming from the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And if all of them are here, I'm actually going to use my chairperson rights to allow them to all speak. But allow me first to invite Dr. Musa Chibwana to address us. They had also asked that the component on them speaking about general comments be merged with this session so that they can do it at once. You would also appreciate that they have been busy the whole of this week with the regional workshops. So we have been flexible in that. You've also had Eddie speaking about how flexible we are. We've been flexible with that to allow them to infuse the presentation so that we can let them go at the point that perhaps they will be feeling comfortable that they can leave the meeting. So over to you, the Secretariat of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. We'll start with yourself, Musa, and Ayelo, if you are here, you can then continue where Musa would have left off. The floor is yours, Musa.
Thank you, Felicitas, and the entire leadership of the CSO Forum for yet another successful forum that we are putting together. This is very commendable. And also to observe all protocols, starting with Joshua, the child representative, for articulately outlining the aspirations of African children on the continent. As I always say, the future is bright when it's in the hands of young people like Joshua. I think I can summarize Joshua's presentation from what I've heard into two things. Number one, the children want protection. They want to be protected. They want to survive. They want healthy childhoods so that they can realize their potential. The second aspect that the children are claiming or that they're expecting from us as duty bearers at several levels is access to quality. It could be quality anything, quality education, quality health, quality childhoods. Children want protection and access to quality. I think it's an obligation that we have to take seriously. And as speakers before me have already mentioned, I think the seriousness that is needed in this regard is already there. And Joshua also made two recommendations to the committee, and I have taken note of these recommendations and will take them seriously as well. The first recommendation is about the committee seriously increasing awareness on the Charter to member states and to children as well as rights holders. We have taken note of that. The second recommendation that Joshua made to us was for us to participate